Welcome to another Out of Spec Renew video. We are back with the classic EV conversion team to discover this fantastic Fiero, fully redone and obviously fully converted to a Tesla drivetrain. So let's review the whole system. We've already covered about the business and so on, so I really want to focus on this build, which was the one that put you guys on the map, didn't it?
This started it all. This is really what blew up and everything was once we built this
Which
car.
is funny for a Fiero, but
right? It hasn't done it literally, but no, it's been great. It's been really good. I think it'll be great to start building more of them. But okay, we can run over this one. So, of course, the original had to add a Tesla badge. Pretty much a Tesla at heart now.
So let's go through the spec of the whole drivetrain.
Okay.
This is pretty much Tesla Model S 85.
Yep.
Under the skin.
Yeah, so, under the skin, it's a 2014 85 kilowatt Model S.
Okay. Which you split into two packs?
Yep, we split into two packs, so we can actually open up this here. I'll show you the back right back here. So this is the majority of the battery pack. So this holds 11 Tesla modules. And then down here in the little hole, you can see the small Tesla drive unit that comes from a standard dual motor Model S. So it puts out about 350 horsepower, followed by all our high voltage junction box that run right into the trunk, into this nice little box right here.
Okay.
But so we can run up to the front real quick. And this is the second battery pack. It is holding 5 Tesla modules. It's hidden under our Gen 2 Tesla charger.
So you've got a pack of 4 flat and then 1 in the center.
That is correct.
Okay. And the charger. So you're repurposing as many components from the Tesla as you can.
Yeah, so actually when we built this original car, we got a wrecked Model S, and we're like, we've never built a Tesla swap car before. So we took it all apart with a pen and paper in hand, documented and traced all the wires, figured out the whole components, wiring diagram and everything. And then once we got that in pieces, we kind of hopped it over to the Fiero and just started reconfiguring everything in the same way that Tesla designed it originally in the Teslas. So we tried to incorporate all the components that we could possibly.
So for this first build, how long did it take you guys to complete it?
So the whole build was spread out over about 2 years.
Yeah, we started this one in March of 2020 before the world shut down with COVID. We took the car apart one weekend, and the next weekend the country was shut down. Yeah. So we kind of pushed this to the corner of the garage and didn't touch it for 6 or 8 months. Yeah, and then by the time we got back into it, it was almost mid 21.
Yeah.
And we really got it on the road in September of 21 or September of 22? September 22, I think.
It was 22, yeah. Yeah, it took us about, during COVID, it took us about, 3 or 4 months just to find a donor car.
Okay.
To get all the components to start building. So we had this car and we stripped it down to pretty much nothing. And we're sitting there with an empty car and no parts to put in it. So after the hunt, we finally found one that was wrecked. We tore that one apart, and then that's when the build really begun. So if we add all the days together, every day it's 180 days nonstop work that finally built this entire car. But it was spread out over that 2-year period or so.
Yeah. So
let's go back to the origin of this project and why you choose a Fiero.
A lot of people ask that. So I had this exact car when I was in my 20s. When I was about Nick's age, I had this exact car. And it was, at that time of my life, the best car I had ever had. It was probably my 3rd or 4th vehicle, but it had a sweet spot in my heart. When my wife and I started having kids, I had to sell it because we couldn't afford to keep a hobby car and a minivan. So got rid of the car, and then back in about 2014, I started looking for this exact car again, and found this one in Idaho. No, I'm sorry, not in Idaho, Iowa. In Iowa, and it had 14,000 original miles on it. So my two daughters and I drove out there and picked it up and drove it back. And I drove it for about 6 years as a internal combustion.
As a daily driver?
Not as a daily driver, but as a hobby car.
Yeah.
And then Nick and I, one of my daughters and I converted a 69 Volkswagen Beetle to a Hyper 9, an electric, and I got the bug. I got the bug and said, "Oh my gosh, this is a lot of fun. This is
awesome.
This is real. This 69 Volkswagen Beetle is now faster than my Fiero," which wasn't a big feat, right?
Yeah.
But then Nick and I started talking, and
The Fiero had to be faster.
Yeah.
It just looked faster.
yeah. So Nick and I started talking and decided, we can make a company out of this. We could make a living out of this, perhaps. And so we started Classic EV Conversions in that weekend in March of 2020, where we decided to drop the engine out and start building.
All right.
Yeah, and that was kind of one late midnight, and that's kind of what started it.
You have an interesting option for the brakes.
So this is a hydraulic brake booster. It produces about 2,000 psi of hydraulic pressure. It's actually from Speedway, and it's used for race cars that have big cams and don't produce enough vacuum.
Okay.
So it's a good alternative that produces enough pressure for racing brakes and everything like that. So we still have the original brakes on it, but the original brakes with the extra weight and about twice the speed was kind of terrifying, to say the least. So we found this to be a perfect fit for it without going real crazy to 13-inch rotors and everything. And this really stops it much quicker than it did before, which is really nice.
Okay.
We do a bunch of regen as well, and the brakes just complement that so nicely. When we didn't have great brakes, the regen seemed to never kick in quick enough, and now it's seamless between the brakes and the regen. It really is tuned in well.
Yeah.
Right. What about charging the car?
So as far as charging goes, we have a J1772 charge port that is actually wired all the way into the Gen 2 Tesla charger.
Okay.
So whenever we were looking at chargers and we had the Tesla torn apart, we're like, we can't use the Tesla charger. We can't use the control board in it, anything like that. And as we dug down the rabbit hole, we ended up finding the open inverter form back in 2020, where you can pretty much make your own circuit board and program it using open source to use the 10 kilowatt Tesla Gen 2 charger, which we found to be the best option with having a 400 volt 85 kilowatt pack, just because on J1772 the smaller kilowatt chargers are so slow at charging.
Yeah.
This one is reasonable, and we still want to upgrade it to an even better charger so we can charge it faster or go to fast charging and everything like that. But for the phase 2, this is a very adequate charger that we found to be the best fit for the vehicle.
All right. We haven't covered how you implemented the high voltage wiring. Does it go out under the car?
Yeah, so pretty much from the front pack right here, there is a Amphenol plug right underneath there that plugs in right from the bottom. And then the original gas tank sat in what a traditional car would have the transmission in.
Yeah.
And it runs all the way down the center of the vehicle. And as it comes down the center, it comes down and around. And it ties into our rear battery box with another Amphenol high voltage connector. And then from our rear box, we have our pre-charge circuit inside this back box with our contactors and another contactor in the front box. And then up in this corner over here, we have our main high voltage fuse right in that white box back down in there.
Yeah.
That is our main high voltage fuse. And then all of that is then plumbed into our high voltage junction box right here.
Okay.
So in this box here, these two wires are your main positive negative for the high voltage, with the two outer ones, your motor wires, followed by your charge cables going all the way to the front charger, another small junction box that's in the rear quarter panel, and then the plug wires from the J1772.
All nicely tucked away, so you can keep most of the room in the back.
So the goal was to not touch the trunk. There's
Okay.
two rules: was don't use the trunk, and then we still had to make the sunroof removable into the front of the vehicle. So we just cleared the charger with the sunroof by about the hair on our head, pretty much, to fit it in there. And then once we got all the components in, we put all the low voltage in the tunnel where the gas tank was. So our Orion BMS, our contactor controller, our low voltage junction box for our motor controllers and everything like that. And we just started running out of space for the high voltage junction box. And unfortunately I had to sacrifice the space for that in the trunk. But it still gives us most of the space in there. But as far as all the low voltage goes in the vehicle, so we have back behind here is our main low voltage junction box. So that's all our bus bars for our 12 volt and everything, and all the components that are in the tunnel.
Okay.
So the main components on this vehicle were actually back when Felton was 0 EV, and they were all their low voltage junction box controls. So that is all up in the tunnel, and we did a lot of testing and diagnosing and rewiring and the whole 9 yards of building this car and figuring out how to get those to work with the Tesla components and everything. And to our surprise, for some reason they don't sell those anymore. Don't know if it was because of us or what, but we got those to work and they work great, especially paired to our Orion BMS that is also down in the tunnel. So if you go on in there and you look in this guy right here, you can actually see the serial connector for the Orion to pair to it and check all the settings and everything that is going on.
But again, everything looks original. Outside of the exhaust pipes, you cannot really tell.
Yeah, right? And the thing was,
Speaking of which,
we took the exhaust off, and being a GT, it is known for the beautiful quad tips in the back. And we took them out and we're like, nothing just looks as well as those do on my car. So Tim went out in the garage and hacked them off the old muffler. And next thing we know, we had exhaust tips back on the car.
so here again, everything looks stock and original. I mean, outside of the exhaust pipe, you could not tell this is an electric car.
Right? But that's the thing though. Like,
Speaking of which,
the GT is so known for the beautiful quad tips on the back of the car. And we took it off and there was just gaping holes. And it didn't look right, you know? It didn't fit. So now you have exhaust and everyone reads electric across the rear of the taillights, and they don't really know what to think. So we've been asked if our last name is electric or who we are, and then we're like, no, the car's electric. Those are just for looks.
that's fantastic. All right, Nick, so what do we have here?
So here we have a custom set of speed height gauges that are wired and programmed into our Orion BMS. So one of the biggest goals on this car was to make it look as OEM as possible. So we reached out to Speed Hut, showed them our original design of our gauges, and they came up with these that best fit the original design. And we took apart the whole gauge cluster, refit these back in there, and then reintroduced them in, and it's almost hard to tell that they're not original.
Exactly. And you even have a dedicated logo for the center of the steering wheel. And more importantly, you still have a nice selection of 70s and 80s cassettes.
Of course, of course. It's so quiet, you can just enjoy all your music as you're cruising down the road.
What else do we have here? I see different drive modes.
Yep, so right there are switching the valves for the cooling system whenever you're charging or whenever you're driving. We currently have it set up to manually switch. The intentions are to change that to automatic down the road, but when we first built the car, we were like, let's make it simple. Let's make it work and have a manual switch, and it works every time. So the switches there are for all the cooling system. And if you look right over here, this is actually our shift knob for reverse, neutral, and drive right there.
And one last thing, the additional gauges are located in this central pod.
So the center pod is actually factory in Fiero's, and we took out those dual gauges and put a 3D printed sheet in there and to accommodate 3 new ones that fit perfectly.
Fantastic. Fantastic, Nick. I think it's time we take this for a spin.
All right, let's do it. Hop on in. All right.
This is loud.
It's like you're sitting on the ground. And Tim is the same height as me, but he drives like he's like 7 foot, so I always gotta adjust the seat. All right. Safety first. Seatbelts on.
So, any particular procedure to start it up?
So the main thing is you turn the key on,
Yeah.
just to start as normal. And then once the gauges do their opening ceremony, you turn the key to start,
Yeah.
as if you were gonna crank over the engine in the car, turn it to a second, and then it's good to go. So I'm
Alright.
gonna put it in drive. I'm gonna put our cooling pumps in our drive mode. So now we're cooling just the motor, keeping the motor nice and cool so we can go have some fun.
All right, let's have some
Alright,
fun.
You ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it. I'm gonna go over here and turn around.
Did you ever put this on a dyno?
We have not, no. We would love to put it on a dyno to see what it actually outputs power and torque wise.
Okay. What do you think you would get, like, give or take?
Give or take, I would say closer to 400 horsepower. Torque, I'm not exactly sure. If I had to guess, I would probably say around 400.
400 Newton. Yeah, front torque. Yeah.
Yep.
What was the fastest, quickest, most powerful Fiero back in the days? That's a question for
Gosh.
Tim.
Yeah, I think the quickest one was about 135 horsepower.
Okay.
On a good day. Yeah, no, Fieros are always known for sounding great, but it's one of the cars that it sounds amazing and it's going nowhere.
Yeah.
Now we sound like nothing and we go everywhere very fast.
That's funny.
So it is a blast.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
So do you have a ludicrous mode, or you get full send all the time?
It's kind of full send all the time. So the mode is kind of based off of your mood.
All right.
You know? So if you just want to cruise, you can
As
cruise.
quick as you can press the pedal,
Pretty
you
much.
get there.
We will get there. All right. Let's go get over to some of these smooth roads. Colorado's beautiful, but some of the roads get messed up by the snow.
Did you redo the whole suspension setup?
So the front suspension is original suspension in the front. The rear has custom coilovers built specifically for the added weight to the vehicle.
Yeah.
And for handling and just kind of the feel of the rear of the car. Because once you add this weight, you can put in stiff springs, but then it's going to feel and handle like a bus. It's going to be terrible. So we got those custom made by a guy that makes racing suspension for people that do V8 swaps and everything. So here, we'll get on it here a little bit.
Whoa! Oh, she goes.
She does. She does. It is a blast.
And yeah, it's pretty quiet. There's no rattling and well, a little bit.
Spoke a bit too soon. Yeah, it's definitely stiffer suspension than before, so you feel the cracks and crevices in the road. But other than that, being a full, plastic chassis and body, so to speak, it's quite silent, to be honest.
So have you done your 0 to 60s throughout the year? Tested? Is it what's the 0 to 60 to start with?
So the original factory 0 to 60, I don't know exactly off the top of my head. I would have to guess that the original one is a little under 10 seconds. We have a little competition going on for our fastest 0 to 60. At the moment, Tim is the winner, and he's just at about 5 seconds.
Okay.
And we're hoping to get some better tires that will actually grip it and
put some power down.
Yeah, put some rubber on the ground. Yeah.
Do you deal with the traction control from the Tesla system?
We do not.
Okay.
So our current controller is the open inverter control board, and we're planning on switching that over to EV controls.
Okay.
And once we go to EV controls, we'll have the capability of having traction control, cruise control, and all the bells and whistles of a Tesla, which is fantastic.
What about full self-driving?
I mean, theoretically, we could add all the sensors, but no plans or anticipations to go for full self-driving.
All right.
Which is the main thing.
I mean, this is a car you want to drive. And,
Exactly.
Yeah,
You
and
want to
push
drive
in the
it,
corners.
enjoy it, drive it up in the mountains, have some fun. So it is a blast to drive and to use. So we'll get up here and we can get around this construction sign and we can get on it. But no, it is a blast. It's daily driven.